The evolutionary warning, lessons from 400,000 years ago. At this very moment, millions of people feel an inexplicable emptiness, a chronic fatigue that no doctor can fully cure. Stress, anxiety, urban depression, insomnia. What if I told you that all of these are warning signs our bodies have been sending for decades? Signs of an evolution that we are dangerously ignoring. In December 2025, revolutionary archaeological discoveries proved something shocking. Our ancestors from 400,000 years ago were much more intelligent and adapted than we ever imagined, and we are paying the price for forgetting their lessons. I'm going to tell you a story that will completely change your perspective on who we are and why we feel so displaced in the modern world. A few weeks ago, British archaeologists made a discovery in Barnum, United Kingdom, that shook everything we knew about human evolution. They found irrefutable evidence that our primitive Neanderthal ancestors mastered fire 400,000 years ago. I'm not talking about using fire found by chance, but about producing fire deliberately, using sophisticated techniques with pyrite, heating the soil to over 700 degrees Celsius. This discovery expands our timeline by an impressive 350,000 years. We previously thought the mastery of fire happened only 50,000 years ago. Now we know that nearly 500,000 years ago, our ancestors had already developed a technology that would completely transform the trajectory of humanity. They cooked food, expanded their brains, created complex social interactions around bonfires, and managed to survive in the harsh climates of Northern Europe. But here is the first warning sign we are ignoring. While our ancestors evolved in harmony with nature, developing technologies that connected them even further to the natural environment, we have created a world that goes against our own biology. A study published in December 2025 in the journal Biological Reviews, conducted by anthropologists Colin Shaw and Daniel Longman, presented a disturbing theory called the environmental mismatch hypothesis. According to this research, our evolutionary fitness was shaped by millions of years of life in nature, but now we are forcing our bodies and minds to function in urban environments for which we simply were not designed. Think about it, your genetics, your nervous system, your hormones, everything was calibrated over millions of years to function in savannas and forests, around campfires, in small and cohesive groups. Now you live in tiny apartments, work under artificial light, breathe polluted air, live with constant noise, have limited contact with nature, and interact mainly through screens. Your body is literally screaming that something is wrong, but you interpret these screams as individual problems that need to be medicated, when in fact they are collective evolutionary signals that all of humanity is ignoring. The second signal we are missing has to do with our misguided understanding of human evolution. For decades, we believed in a linear narrative. We were primitive, we evolved gradually, and we became intelligent. But in 2025, a discovery in Ethiopia completely destroyed this simplistic view. Researchers from Arizona State University, led by Johannes Haile Selassie, found evidence that two ancient human species lived side by side 3.4 million years ago. One was Lucy, of Australopithecus afarensis, whom you likely know from history books. The other was identified through a fossil foot that shows a completely different way of walking. These two species lived in the same territory but occupied distinct ecological niches. They had different diets, different forms of locomotion, and different survival strategies. They coexisted peacefully, each specialized in its specific environment. This is the only known archaeological site where we have direct evidence of two hominid species living simultaneously. And this teaches us something fundamental that we are ignoring. Evolutionary diversity is not destructive competition, it is collaborative specialization. Our ancestors understood that different groups could thrive in the same space using different strategies. Today, we force all of humanity to follow a single model of life: the big city, corporate work, standardized consumption, and digital relationships. We are doing exactly the opposite of what evolution taught us. We are creating a human monoculture that goes against millions of years of adaptive diversity. The third warning sign is related to our relationship with technology. When our ancestors mastered fire in Barnum 400,000 years ago, they didn't use that technology to move away from nature. On the contrary, fire connected them even more deeply with the natural world. They learned to read the winds to control the flames, to identify woods that burned better, and to use specific stones like pyrite to create sparks. Fire allowed them to expand their brains because they could cook food, making digestion more efficient and releasing energy for neurological development. But this brain growth always happened in connection with nature, never in opposition to it. The bonfires became centers of socialization where knowledge was shared, stories were told, and community bonds were strengthened. Compare this with our current technology. Our devices isolate us from nature and from each other. We spend hours staring at artificial screens while losing the ability to read the signals of the natural environment. Our ancestors used technology to amplify their connection to the real world. We use technology to escape from the real world. This misalignment is creating what researchers call evolutionary chronic stress. Your body produces cortisol constantly because it interprets the urban environment as a permanent threat. Traffic noise activates the same alert mechanisms our ancestors used to detect predators. Artificial lights confuse your circadian rhythms, which were calibrated by millions of years of natural sun exposure. The fourth signal we are ignoring has to do with our speed of adaptation. Shaw and Longman's research showed that human genetic adaptation takes tens to hundreds of thousands of years. Industrialization happened in just 200 years. The digital revolution in only 30 years. We are changing our environment much faster than our bodies can adapt. This means you are living with a hunter-gatherer body in a world of offices and smartphones. Your nervous system still expects to walk miles a day, but you sit for 8 hours straight. Your eyes were designed to focus on varying distances in nature, but you force them to look at small screens for hours. Your digestive system evolved for periods of fasting interspersed with nutritious meals, but you eat processed foods constantly. All these misalignments generate warning signs that we interpret as individual problems. You think you are lazy because you have no energy, that you are antisocial because you prefer to stay home, or that you have concentration issues because you can't focus. In reality, you are responding normally to an abnormal environment. The fifth critical signal lies in our loss of behavioral diversity. The Ethiopian discovery of two species coexisting teaches us that our ancestors thrived through diversified specialization. Some were better in arboreal environments, others on open ground. Some had more carnivorous diets, others more vegetarian. This diversity was a strength, not a weakness. Today, we create educational systems that force all children to learn the same way, job markets that value only a few types of intelligence, and cities that work well only for certain personality types. We are losing the richness of human diversity that allowed us to survive and thrive for millions of years. Introverted people are medicated to become extroverts. People with different natural rhythms are forced to wake up at the same time. People with manual skills are undervalued in favor of intellectual work. People who connect better with nature are pushed into urban environments. We are creating a society that wastes most of human potential. The sixth warning sign is in our disconnection from natural cycles. Our ancestors in Barnum lived in sync with the seasons, the lunar cycles, and the rhythms of day and night. They knew when to plant, when to hunt, when to rest, and when to migrate. This harmony with natural rhythms was not just practical, it was fundamental to their mental and physical health. You live under constant artificial light, in artificially controlled temperatures. Eating food available year-round regardless of seasonality, and working the same hours regardless of the natural length of the day. Your body has lost the ability to synchronize with the rhythms that regulated human life for millions of years. This desynchronization is at the root of many modern problems: sleep disorders, seasonal depression, metabolic syndrome, and premature aging. These are not individual diseases, they are collective symptoms of a species that has lost connection with its fundamental evolutionary rhythms. The seventh critical signal is in our misguided understanding of intelligence and progress. The discovery that primitive Neanderthals mastered sophisticated fire production techniques 400,000 years ago should humble us. They had brains the size of ours, developed complex technologies, and lived sustainably for hundreds of thousands of years without destroying their environment. We consider ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. But in just 200 years of industrialization, we have managed to alter the global climate, extinguish thousands of species, pollute oceans, and create massive inequality and epidemics of mental illness. Our ancestors were more intelligent in fundamental ways that we have forgotten. They knew how to live in balance with their environment. True evolutionary intelligence is not just the ability to create technology, it is the ability to create technology that sustains and improves life in the long term. Our ancestors did this with fire. We have not yet learned to do this with our modern technology. The eighth signal we ignore is in our relationship with community and cooperation. The Barnum fires were not just for cooking and warmth, they were social centers where knowledge was shared, bonds were strengthened, and collective survival was planned. Our ancestors understood that individual intelligence only makes sense within collective intelligence. Today, we live isolated in apartments, constantly competing with one another, accumulating information individually instead of sharing wisdom collectively. We have created a society that prizes extreme individualism, even though our evolution was based on sophisticated cooperation. This social isolation is not just a psychological problem, it is an evolutionary one. Your brain was designed to function in small, cohesive groups where each person knew the others intimately. You try to replace this with digital social networks, but your nervous system cannot process superficial relationships with hundreds of people as if they were real connections. The ninth warning sign is in our loss of fundamental skills. Our ancestors knew how to read the natural environment, identify edible plants, predict weather changes, navigate without GPS, create tools with their own hands, and heal wounds with natural resources. These were not primitive skills, they were sophisticated forms of practical intelligence. You likely cannot identify edible plants in your region, cannot navigate without technology, do not know how to make fire without matches, and do not recognize signs of changing weather. You have lost skills that your ancestors considered basic for survival. This leaves you dependent on complex systems that can fail, making you vulnerable to situations your ancestors would have solved easily. This excessive dependence on external technology creates unconscious anxiety. Part of your chronic stress comes from the intuitive knowledge that you wouldn't know how to survive if modern systems failed. Your ancestors had deep confidence in their own abilities. You have confidence only in systems you do not control. The 10th critical signal is in our diet. When our ancestors mastered fire, they revolutionized not only how they cooked, but what they ate. Cooked foods allowed for better nutrient absorption, more efficient digestion, and accelerated brain development. But they continued eating whole, seasonal, local foods. You eat mainly processed foods, full of chemicals that didn't exist until a few decades ago, industrially produced in conditions your ancestors would not recognize as food. Your digestive system, calibrated by millions of years of evolution, is trying to process completely artificial substances. It is no coincidence that metabolic diseases, food allergies, digestive problems, and obesity are epidemic. These are not individual problems of willpower, they are evolutionary problems of incompatibility between your ancestral biology and your modern diet. The 11th signal we are missing is in our relationship with movement and physical exercise. Our ancestors walked miles daily, carried weight regularly, and used their entire bodies in functional movements. They did not perform exercise as a separate activity, movement was naturally integrated into all their activities. The evolutionary warning, reclaiming our ancestral wisdom. You sit for most of the day, then try to compensate with an hour at the gym. But your body wasn't designed for long periods of inactivity followed by isolated, intense exercise. It was designed for constant, varied, functional movement, integrated into productive daily activities. This disconnection between movement and function creates postural problems, chronic pain, repetitive strain injuries, and generalized muscle weakness. You try to solve it with physical therapy and medication, when in reality, you need to reintegrate natural movement into your everyday life. The 12th warning sign is our loss of connection to evolutionary purpose. Our ancestors had clear roles in collective survival. Every person contributed directly to the group's continuity. They saw immediate, tangible results of their labor. They knew exactly why they woke up every day. Many people today work in roles they cannot connect to any real purpose. They spend entire days in meetings that produce nothing tangible, fill out spreadsheets that no one uses, and sell products they know won't improve anyone's life. This disconnection from purpose creates a deep existential void. Your brain was programmed to find meaning through real contribution to collective survival. When you cannot see how your work contributes to something greater, you develop depression, anxiety, and a sense of uselessness. These are not individual psychological failures, they are evolutionary signals that you are wasting your potential. The 13th critical signal is our speed of life. The Barnum discovery shows that our ancestors developed sophisticated technologies, but at a sustainable pace. They had time to observe, experiment, reflect, and integrate what they learned. Innovation happened in harmony with natural rhythms. You live in constant acceleration, always racing against artificial deadlines, consuming information faster than you can process it, and switching tasks before mastering the previous one. This excessive speed prevents deep learning, necessary reflection, and the integration of experiences. Your nervous system cannot process such rapid changes. It was calibrated for much slower rhythms. Constant acceleration keeps you in a permanent state of alert, preventing real rest, necessary recovery, and proper emotional processing. The 14th signal we ignore is our relationship with uncertainty and control. Our ancestors lived with natural uncertainty. They didn't know if they would find food, if the weather would be favorable, or if dangers awaited them. But they developed resilience, adaptability, and the ability to improvise. They were comfortable with uncertainty because they had confidence in their own skills. You live trying to control everything, planning every detail, avoiding any uncertainty. But paradoxically, this makes you more anxious, not less. When something slips out of your control, you panic because you've lost the ancestral ability to adapt fluidly to unforeseen situations. The attempt to control everything creates mental and emotional rigidity. Your ancestors were like bamboo, flexible, resilient, able to bend without breaking. You have become like glass, seemingly strong, but fragile when pressured in an unexpected way. The 15th warning sign is our disconnection from death and finitude. Our ancestors lived aware of mortality, which gave urgency and meaning to each day. They honored their ancestors, prepared the next generations, and made decisions thinking of long-term impact. You live as if you were immortal, constantly postponing what really matters, accumulating material things as if they would last forever, and avoiding thoughts of the end. This denial of death paradoxically diminishes the quality of life, because you lose the healthy urgency that motivates meaningful action. Awareness of mortality is not morbid, it is motivating. When you truly understand that your time is limited, you stop wasting energy on irrelevant things and focus on what truly matters. Your ancestors knew this intuitively. How to apply ancestral lessons today. Now, after exploring all these evolutionary signals we are ignoring, you must be wondering, what do I do with this information? How do I apply these ancestral lessons to modern life? The answer isn't returning to live in caves, but integrating evolutionary wisdom with contemporary possibilities. Reconnect with natural rhythms, wake up with the sun whenever possible, sleep when it gets dark, eat seasonal foods, and spend time outdoors daily. Develop practical skills, learn to identify plants, navigate without GPS, or fix things with your hands. These skills reconnect you with your evolutionary heritage and increase your fundamental confidence. Create real communities, prioritize face-to-face relationships, share meals regularly, and build mutual support networks. Your brain needs authentic tribal connection to function fully. Integrate natural movement, walk whenever possible, carry weight functionally, use stairs, and play. Movement should be pleasurable and integrated, not a separate chore. Simplify your technology, use devices as specific tools, not as constant entertainment. Create regular periods of digital disconnection. Find purpose through tangible contribution, identify how your work improves the lives of real people. If you can't, consider changes that align your activity with values of cooperation and sustainability. Accept uncertainty, develop resilience through gradual exposure to controllable challenges. Practice improvisation and build confidence in your problem-solving skills. Honor your individual rhythms, whether you are a night owl or need more solitude, organize your life to accommodate your biology. Individual diversity is an evolutionary strength. Recondition your environment. Your nervous system needs regular contact with natural environments. It is not a luxury, it is preventive medicine. Practice ancestral gratitude, recognize that you are the result of millions of years of successful survival. You carry a legacy of resilience in your DNA. Think of future generations, make decisions considering long-term impact. Our ancestors thought in terms of 7 generations, this perspective improves the quality of your choices. The most recent research suggests that the solution is not trying to speed up our genetic adaptation, which would take thousands of years, but redesigning our environments and behaviors to be more compatible with our biological heritage. This doesn't mean rejecting modern technology, but using it more wisely. Our ancestors in Barnum showed us how. They used fire to amplify their natural capabilities, not to replace them. Cities can be redesigned for more green space and community, work can be restructured for more purpose and autonomy. Education can honor different types of intelligence. The discoveries of 2025 have given us an invaluable gift, a deeper understanding of who we really are. Our ancestors were not primitive beings on a linear path to us. They were intelligent, adapted, and sustainable. We are the ones struggling, trying to force hunter-gatherer bodies into a world they weren't designed for. But now that we know, we can choose differently. We can honor our evolutionary heritage while embracing the best of modern life. The path forward, realigning with our true nature. The real danger is not in ignoring technology, it lies in ignoring our biology. The warning signs are everywhere: epidemics of anxiety, depression, chronic illness, existential voids, social isolation, and environmental destruction. These are not isolated individual problems, they are the collective symptoms of a species that has lost connection with its evolutionary roots. But each of us can begin the change today. Every choice aligned with ancestral wisdom is a step toward a healthier, more meaningful, and sustainable life. You don't have to wait for society to change. You can start applying these lessons in your personal life immediately. Remember, you are the descendant of survivors. Every single one of your ancestors faced immense challenges and found ways to thrive. That capacity is in your DNA, waiting to be reactivated. The evolutionary signs we are ignoring are not just warnings about problems, they are invitations to rediscover our true nature. Evolution has not stopped. It is happening right now, through your daily choices. You can choose to evolve toward greater harmony with your biological heritage, or continue evolving toward greater misalignment. The choice is yours, but now you have the information needed to choose consciously. If this content resonated with you, leave a comment sharing which evolutionary sign caught your attention most and how you intend to apply these findings to your life. Your experience may inspire others to reconnect with their ancestral heritage. Subscribe to the channel for more content connecting evolutionary science with practical living, and leave a like if you believe more people need to know about these revolutionary discoveries. Until the next video, remember, you are much more resilient and adaptable than you imagine, because you carry millions of years of successful survival in your DNA. Real-life transformations, 3 case studies. Before finishing, I want to share 3 fascinating case studies that demonstrate how real people applied these evolutionary principles and completely transformed their lives. These stories are not exceptions, they are examples of what happens when we align modern life with our ancestral heritage. Case 1. The executive who rediscovered her circadian rhythm. Sarah was a 42-year-old executive who had suffered from chronic insomnia for over a decade. She took sleep medication, consumed 5 cups of coffee a day, and felt constantly exhausted. When she learned about chronobiology, the study of biological rhythms, she decided to try a radical experiment. First, she installed blue light filters on all her devices and dimmed artificial lighting 2 hours before bed. Second, she exposed herself to natural sunlight for at least 30 minutes every morning, even on cloudy days. Third, she adjusted her meal times to finish eating at least 3 hours before sleeping. In just 6 weeks, Sarah was able to completely stop taking sleep medication. Her energy during the day increased drastically, her creativity at work flourished, and she reported feeling more connected to her own body for the first time in years. What she did was simply realign her habits with the rhythms our ancestors followed naturally for millions of years. Case 2. The programmer who healed his social anxiety through movement. Marcus, a 28-year-old software developer, suffered from severe social anxiety. He avoided social events, felt palpitations when speaking in public, and his career was stagnant due to his inability to network. Conventional treatments offered only temporary relief. Inspired by research on how our ancestors developed confidence through physical competence, Marcus began a functional training program that mimicked ancestral movements, carrying heavy objects, climbing, crawling, and jumping. It wasn't a traditional gym, it was movement our bodies were designed to perform. Something extraordinary happened. As Marcus developed physical competence, his social confidence began to emerge naturally. The explanation lies in neuroscience. The same neural circuits that process physical competence are intimately connected with our sense of social self-efficacy. When we strengthen one, we strengthen the other. After 8 months, Marcus not only overcame his social anxiety but was promoted to a leadership position. He now leads presentations regularly and credits his transformation to realigning with ancestral movement patterns that reactivated his innate confidence. Case 3. The family that revolutionized their health through evolutionary eating. The Johnson family was facing a health crisis. The father, David, had type 2 diabetes. The mother, Lisa, suffered from chronic migraines. Their 2 teenage children struggled with obesity and concentration issues at school. Medical costs were draining their savings. Desperate, they decided to apply evolutionary nutrition principles. They eliminated all processed foods and added sugars. They adopted a diet based on foods our ancestors would recognize: grass-fed meats, wild fish, organic vegetables, seasonal fruits, nuts, and seeds. But they went beyond just food. They implemented intermittent fasting, mimicking the natural patterns of food availability our ancestors experienced. They began having family meals without electronic devices, recreating the social aspect of ancestral eating. The results were extraordinary. In 6 months, David completely reversed his diabetes. His glucose levels returned to normal without medication. Lisa's migraines disappeared. The children lost weight naturally, and their school grades improved significantly. The whole family's energy increased, and they reported feeling more united as a family unit. The Evolutionary Realignment Protocol, your action plan. Based on these discoveries and success stories, I've developed a practical protocol that you can implement gradually. Don't try to do everything at once. Remember, evolution is a gradual process. Weeks 1 to 2, circadian realignment. Start with your sleep rhythm. Filter blue light after sunset. Create a dimming ritual 2 hours before bed. Get 20 minutes of morning sunlight. Observe how your mood stabilizes. Weeks 3 to 4, connection with natural movement. Incorporate functional movements. Walk barefoot when possible. Practice deep squats while watching TV. Carry your groceries. Use stairs. Your body will remember its natural capacity. Weeks 5 to 6, evolutionary nutritional optimization. Eliminate ultra-processed foods. Add colorful vegetables. Try a 12-hour intermittent fasting window. Chew slowly and mindfully. Weeks 7 to 8, social and community reconnection. Organize device-free meals. Start face-to-face conversations with neighbors. Practice expressed gratitude. Your sense of belonging will flourish. Weeks 9 to 10, nature integration. Spend at least 1 hour a week in nature. Try gardening, even in small pots. Observe the phases of the moon and seasonal changes. Allow for moments of silence. Weeks 11 to 12. Developing adaptive resilience. Practice controlled cold exposure. End your showers with 30 seconds of cold water. Try deep breathing exercises. Solve problems without immediately turning to technology. The science of personal transformation. The environment you create around you is the most powerful factor in your transformation. Our ancestors lived in environments that naturally promoted health. You can recreate these elements today. Maximize natural light in your home. Introduce plants to activate relaxation responses in your nervous system. Cultivate deep relationships over superficial ones. Humans evolved in small, cohesive groups. Practicing authentic vulnerability is one of our greatest evolutionary advantages. When you align your life with evolutionary principles, you become a catalyst for transformation that extends far beyond yourself. Your choices inspire family, friends, and colleagues. Your children grow up seeing healthy models of how to live. This is the true revolution. A transformation that begins inside you and radiates out to the world, creating waves of positive change that can last for generations.